What's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick's Strength of Power. So I wanted to talk about this story that a lot of people have been messaging to me lately. And this story is about a young man that actually dies from overdosing on raw caffeine powder. So this story is a very interesting story, and it kind of serves as a cautionary tale about supplementing with caffeine and about the dangers of maybe somebody that doesn't really know what they're doing, hasn't really done their research when it comes to a product like this, and might be a little bit ignorant as to how dangerous this could really be. So this story is an older story. I believe it happened in January of 2018 or New Year's Day of 2018, I believe. So it was a while ago. But for whatever reason, this story is going viral again now and has been republished. This particular one that we're looking at right now was published yesterday on July 8th, 2019. And a lot of people have been sending this to me, asking me to talk about it. And this is something that I would like to talk about because this is something that I think is very important. And again, I think can serve as a great cautionary tale. Now, first I want to preface this video with the fact that obviously caffeine can certainly is a very safe, a very effective, and just overall a very useful tool to supplement, whether it be with working out or just have energy in general. Caffeine is certainly a safe and effective thing to use if you know what you're doing. And raw caffeine powder is something that I think in a lot of states it's not even legal to buy or sell raw caffeine powder, but some places it is. In places like where this story happened in Australia, is apparently you have access to raw caffeine powder, which is very, very different than just a regular pre-workout that already has the caffeine mixed in there. So the headline of this story, you guys can see, man 21 dies after drinking protein shake with 50 coffees worth of caffeine. Lachlan Foote died in his home at Blackheath, Australia on New Year's Day after drinking a protein shake. So this is an interesting story. And I believe they go on to say in the article that 50 cups of coffee that they're referencing, the amount of caffeine powder that he put in his protein shake was 5,000 milligrams, 5,000 of caffeine. And to put that in perspective, the average pre-workout, like a regular mid-grade strength pre-workout, is probably somewhere between 200 and 250-ish milligrams of pre-workout. Now there do exist some very strong pre-workouts that have between 500 and 1,000 milligrams of caffeine. That's what I want to get to later in this video, because even though in this particular instance we're talking about raw caffeine powder, I do believe that some of the pre-workouts that are on the market today might be too strong. And one of the points that I wanted to make is that different people obviously are going to have different caffeine tolerances. So for someone that might not have a very high caffeine tolerance, taking a pre-workout with 1,000 milligrams of caffeine, while that might be perfectly safe for a lot of people, somebody that doesn't have the caffeine tolerance for 1,000 milligrams, that might be very, very dangerous. And I'm going to talk about the story with me a little bit later on in this video, but let's go ahead and dive into this article a little bit and talk about what specifically happened with this guy, Lachlan Foote. So Lachlan, 21 years old, this was actually a day before his 22nd birthday that he passed away. He was a musician there in Australia. They show some photos and videos of him playing his music, which is kind of sad. So the article goes on to say, a young man collapsed and died on New Year's Eve after accidentally drinking a protein shake with 50 cups of coffee worth of caffeine. So the interesting thing here is this was at about 2 a.m. at night, or in the morning, I guess you could say. So this kid was out partying, he was out drinking, he came back home around 2 a.m. and made himself a protein shake, and at 2 a.m. I guess felt the need to put a tablespoon, or I believe it was a teaspoon, of caffeine in that protein shake at 2 a.m. So they go on to say here that a teaspoon of raw caffeine powder is 5,000 milligrams of caffeine. A lot of people might not know that. So if you don't do your research, it might look like a little bit of caffeine, but that one little teaspoon is a shitload, for lack of a better term, of caffeine. So that's one of the important things I wanted to mention here is you can't blame caffeine in a situation like this. It's like blaming, I'm trying to think of a good example. You got to blame the person who didn't do the research, and you can't really blame the caffeine. I mean, you can take too many Advils and die if you don't know the proper dosing of taking an Advil. If you take a whole bottle of Advil, it can kill you. So again, this isn't one of those things where I want to demonize caffeine, but I kind of think it's a good point to point out that people who are supplementing caffeine, especially guys that are working out looking for extra energy, they need to be very, very careful and do their research, because products like this do exist where you can buy raw caffeine powder, and people want to be People want to be different, make their own pre-workouts, make their own protein shakes, and buy the ingredients separately, thinking they know what they're doing enough to make their own energy concoction or whatever it was this kid's goal was with this protein shake. So he says, the article says, in the early hours of New Year's Day last year, Lachlan Foote returned to his home after a night out with his friends, and he made himself a protein shake. Minutes after kissing his mom goodnight, he then blacked out in the family's home in Blackheath, Australia. He then never regained consciousness. The timing of Lachlan's death, the day after New Year's Eve and the day before his birthday, led many in the town to speculate that he had actually overdosed on recreational drugs. Now, this was not the case. He had an autopsy performed, it'll say that in the article, and there were no recreational drugs in his system, just the caffeine and a little bit of alcohol. So then it goes on to say, in fact, the 21-year-old had unknowingly ingested dangerous amounts of caffeine in his protein shake. The 1 teaspoon he added to the mix was equivalent to 50 cups of coffee. Again, they mentioned that several times, but they go on to say in the article that 1 teaspoon of raw caffeine powder, 5,000 milligrams. So it turns out that Lachlan came home after celebrating New Year's Eve with his friends and made a protein shake, innocently adding too much pure caffeine powder. A teaspoon is lethal, his father Nigel told news.com.au. Caffeine powder is used by fitness enthusiasts as a dietary supplement. It's not clear where Lachlan acquired his supply, with a search of his computer and bank statements coming up blank. So I'm not entirely sure if where he lives it's actually legal to purchase raw caffeine powder. It probably shouldn't really be legal to purchase it anywhere unless you're a manufacturer of supplements. It shouldn't be, just a general consumer to buy raw caffeine powder. His dad believes the powder was given to his son by a friend or a work colleague, meaning he was unlikely to see the warning label on the packet. And this next part here kind of speaks to my point about user error and maybe not having all the knowledge about what you're actually taking, and the importance of being educated and doing your research before you take a supplement, especially something like raw caffeine powder. The dad goes on to say that his son Lachlan kept this powder in a baggie in the pantry of the family's home, which led the father to believe that Lachlan didn't think this was anything dangerous. He thought it was just like a regular supplement. He was keeping it in the pantry with like the cookies or whatever, just sitting there, and it wasn't something that he hid from his parents. So I guess he didn't think it was dangerous, maybe didn't think it was illegal, maybe didn't think it was something that was really that big of a deal, when in fact 1 teaspoon of this powder is a lethal amount of this powder. So it says on the night that he died, he actually sent a text message to his friends, and the last message that he sent was, "I think my protein powder has gone off." He wrote that message at 2:07 a.m. and then he says good night to his friends, "I'll see you in the morning," when in fact he never actually did. So then it goes on, his dad goes on to say, "We found him dead and cold on the bathroom floor on New Year's Day of 2018, the day before his 22nd birthday. Rumors that Lachlan had died of a drug overdose were quickly quashed by a pathologist who confirmed there were no illicit substances in his body." It's a long article. It also says his blood alcohol level was below 0.05, meaning he probably just had a few beers the night before. The dad says he has no ill will towards whoever gave him this caffeine powder. It says caffeine powder has been banned in the U.S. since 2018, 4 years after wrestler Logan Steiner died after having taken this substance. I believe that kid was from Ohio, the kid that died recently. So it's only been banned for a couple of years now. Not even a couple of years. Just 1 teaspoon of pure caffeine powder contains 5,000 milligrams of caffeine, which could be lethal. Mixing 2 teaspoons into a shake or any other drink is the equivalent of 70 cans of Red Bull all at once. So that's how dangerous raw caffeine powder is. And the point that I wanted to make, and the reason why I wanted to make a video just talking about this particular story and not making a video about multiple stories, is the fact that back in 2017, when I had my heart scare, and typically with caffeine, what you're going to see, if you're going to see problems with young kids, whether dying or having health problems, it's typically going to be heart related. And I believe that's what we saw with the kid in Ohio who drank a couple of energy drinks in class and died in class because of the reaction that his heart had to it, which again, everybody has different tolerance levels. Everybody reacts differently to caffeine. It's not something you can say would be dangerous for everybody. But when I had my issue with my heart back in 2017, I woke up one morning, I hadn't had any caffeine yet. I hadn't ingested anything. I woke up and my heart was beating like out of control. It was beating irregularly. I was having heart palpitations, I guess you could call it. And so I went to the doctor, I went to the hospital. I had an echocardiogram done, which is essentially, imagine a sonogram of a baby An echocardiogram is basically to look at your heart the same way they would look at the baby in a woman's womb, and look at the structure of the heart and see if there's any structural deficiencies in the heart that would cause irregularities or rapid heartbeat or what I was experiencing. Did the echocardiogram, nothing. Completely normal results, completely normal heart, everything was great. So I was still worried about it, so I went in and I had an electrocardiogram done, an EKG, and that's where they hook the electronic leads up to your chest and they monitor the electronic signals of your heart for 24 hours. I did that. They went over the results. Everything was normal. So we went back to the doctor's office after having all these results back, and they asked me what my caffeine consumption was like. And I told them, and at this point my caffeine consumption was pretty high. It was probably well over 1,000 milligrams a day, because once you've added up a couple cups of coffee, a couple scoops of pre-workout, it really adds up. And at this time I was still in college, so I would wake up, I would have a cup of coffee, maybe 2 cups of coffee, then I would go to class or go to the gym, and then I would have my pre-workout, and I might do 1 or 2 scoops of pre-workout. Then I would come back and do my schoolwork. Then I'd have some more coffee or some more caffeine, maybe an energy drink. And by the time this is all said and done, you're adding up to close to 1,000 milligrams of caffeine a day. And this was over the course of years and years and years of taking pre-workout. I've been taking pre-workout since I was 14, 15 years old, and I'm 26 now. So 10 years of taking caffeine every single day. And my tolerance had gradually gotten higher and higher and higher to the point where I was taking as much as I was in 2017. So they told me, look, cut back on the caffeine, you're probably not gonna have any problems with your heart. So on that day, I quit caffeine cold turkey from 2017 to 2018. No coffee, no energy drinks, no form of caffeine whatsoever for an entire year from 2017 to 2018. And my heart problems essentially went away. And gradually, towards the end of 2018, early 2019, I reintroduced coffee, just regular black coffee, because I was having just really low energy eventually at that point. And then eventually I would take like a half a scoop of regular stimulant caffeine pre-workout if I was feeling really, really low energy that day, but no more mixing coffee and pre-workout and multiple scoops of pre-workout, none of that. If I'm drinking pre-workout, I'm not drinking coffee that day. So I'm really, really careful about my caffeine consumption now because of that heart issue that I had. It was a really scary thing because the feeling that I had was like a small bird fluttering around in my chest uncontrollably, but it was my heart. And it just felt like my heart was gonna explode. And really the doctors believed it was completely due to caffeine. So that's the point that I wanted to make here is I think oftentimes people think more is better. And like I said, caffeine can be a totally safe, very effective, just supplement in general, but people just have to be careful how much they take. They need to do their research, and they just need to be careful and not overdo it. I think the key is moderation. The key to everything really is moderation. And again, this story is an extreme example, but I think it does serve as a good cautionary tale. Don't buy sketchy stuff. Don't buy raw caffeine powder. Buy something that's already dosed, that you can actually measure how much is in it. I know you can measure raw caffeine powder, but measure something that's already dosed appropriately. That 1 scoopful isn't going to kill you. 1 scoopful of raw caffeine powder will kill you. So interesting story, sad story, unfortunate story, but I think by putting this story out there and getting more attention to it, it'll probably warn some kids and probably help some people, maybe save some people's lives. Just don't fuck around with raw caffeine powder. So that's the moral of the story, guys. Kind of a different style of video today, just more of a general fitness video, not so much a bodybuilding specific video, but I hope you did enjoy it. Please give it a thumbs up if you did in fact enjoy this video. Make sure you subscribe to this channel if you have not subscribed already for more content just like this, bodybuilding news, bodybuilding coverage, whatever information you guys want, I'm here for you guys. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, Nick Strength and Power, signing out.